Okay guys, here's your headshot workflow. Sylvie has generously offered to be my guinea pig for this. Alright, so you're in Bridge, you're browsing, you've got a photo, you've got a couple of options, and you're going to go ahead and choose whichever photo that you want to edit. When you double click on that DNG file, it's going to open up here in Adobe Camera Raw. Step 1, convert to grayscale. Alright, you're going to do that on this fourth tab. Go back to your Basics tab. Step 2, go down here to the workflow options. We want to go ahead and choose Adobe 1998, 8 bits per channel, and choose the largest possible. In this case, it's going to be 25, the largest possible. And the resolution should be 240 pixels per inch. Click OK. Step 3, click Auto, see what happens. Default, Auto. Sure, we'll go with Auto for now. We're going to go ahead and adjust exposure, recovery, fill light, blacks, brightness, contrast as we see fit. In this case, the white balance doesn't matter because that's going to be controlling the color. Now, I am going to crop, but I want to do that in Photoshop. I'll show you that step when we get there. In the meantime, I can hit Command plus, or I go down here to this little guy to zoom in. I want to just get in on Sylvie's face a little bit more so I can see what we're working with here. I'm going to end up having a crop that's pretty close to this. Okay? Now, I think our exposure is about right. We could maybe brighten up just a tad. It's already at plus 0.2, maybe plus 0.3. Looks good. Recovery. Now, what is recovery? I'm going to hit Command minus, Command 0 to get that full screen. And then over here, check this out. I've got highlight clipping warning and shadow clipping warning. Let's leave those on. If I click those, and if I increase my blacks, you'll see that anytime there is a black without detail, it'll turn blue. And if I uncheck that, you can see it's black without detail. It doesn't look very good at all. And if I were to take my brightness and crank it way up, or my exposure and crank it way up, let's do both and see. There it is. There's my highlight clipping warning. So it'll turn red when it's totally blown out. All right. Let's go back to our auto. I like our auto. Our auto works pretty well. I might actually bring that exposure up a little bit more, maybe a plus 0.9. That looks okay. Right? And then my recovery, I can sort of balance that really bright highlight tone. Fill light's going to control how deep your shadows are. Usually with a headshot, we don't want really deep shadows. So we're going to go ahead and add some fill light. Black's down to 0. You might add a little bit of brightness there, something like that. You're going to do it based on how it looks to you. Adjust all of these. You don't want it to be too contrasty. All right? You don't want it to be totally gray. Right, so this contrast is actually probably pretty good where it was, about plus 50. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and open the image. So that was a really quick rundown. If you want another view of Adobe Camera Raw and kind of what's possible with Adobe Camera Raw, check out the other video that I have on Adobe Camera Raw. I'm going to hit the F key, right? Step 1, once I get into Photoshop, background copy. Step 2, I'm going to go ahead and use the rectangular marquee tool. And I'm going to set this style to fixed ratio. I want to change that width to 8, and then I'm going to plug in 10.5 for my height. And what I want to do is make a selection of my model's head here. I want some space on top, space on the side, and I want her face to take up about half of that total area. In this case, I think it's a little bit too big, so I'm going to go select, deselect to get rid of that, and then I'm going to see if I can get in a little bit tighter. A little bit tighter here, something like that. That looks pretty good, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and go image crop. Image crop. And what it's going to do is it's going to crop down to there. I'm going to go select, deselect to get rid of those marching ants around the outside. And then I go to image, image size. There we go. Now what I want to do is have my width and height be exactly 8 by 10.5. And I think what I just did was totally randomly crop to exactly the right size that I wanted. That just happened. Okay, let me just explain what just happened. I selected randomly a size around Sylvie's head. With the size of the file, it happened to be a crop that was exactly 8 by 10.5. So I'm just going to show you here by hitting Command Z and Command Option Z to go back. If I were to make this selection, which is a little bit bigger, and then go on image, crop, select, deselect, image, image size, check this out, different width and height. I nailed it that first time. That's pretty wild. Okay, so anyway, we're going to go ahead and change that to 8. And then notice how the height snaps right to 10.5, 240 is fine. And that's because all 3 of these are selected. If one of these isn't selected, or all 3 of them aren't selected, you're going to have some problems, okay? So what we want to do is have all 3 of these selected. And then what we can do when we change our width, it'll change 8 by 10.5. And then look up here at these pixel dimensions. If it was 2.25 and it's now 13.8, we're going to choose best for reduction. The default is bicubic, okay? We want to choose best for reduction. But if, let's say it was 13 and it's now 25, we would choose the best for reduction. So you can see whichever one we're doing, in this case we're making it smaller. Now I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to undo, deselect, and then I'm going to go back in here and try and get that crop. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, let's see if I got it exact. So image, crop, and then select, deselect, and then image, image size. Now all these have shortcut keys, so I wanted to work a little faster. No, I didn't get it. So here it is, 8 by 10.5, bicubic sharper, because I was 15, now I'm 13. Okay, so that's it. You're going to go ahead and background copy. You're going to crop using the rectangular marquee tool at a fixed ratio, and then you're going to resize to 10.5 tall by 8 wide. And then here we go, Command Option 0 is going to get me at 100%. You can see this was a test. We were testing the lighting. We didn't quite get the focus. That's kind of a key thing. I'm going to Command minus a couple times. But basically what you want to do at this point is on your background copy is do some retouching. So much has been said about retouching. I don't want you to go crazy. The rule of thumb I want you to use for retouching is this. If it's not there every day, you can retouch it out within reason. So this would be acne, right? If we don't have that on our face every single day, you can retouch that out. A dimple, that's something that's part of Sylvie's face. We're going to keep that. We're not going to retouch that out. That would be really silly. A mole is part of somebody's face that's there all the time. A freckle, all the time, okay? Use your judgment and be conservative. In other words, don't retouch as much as you might think. Don't overdo it. You don't want to ever see the retouching. You don't ever want to see the effects of your retouching. Okay? And other than that, that's all we're going to do. So how do you retouch? Sylvie's actually got great skin, and then also we've got it's a little bit out of focus, which helps so that any blemishes don't show up. But here's how you would do it if you were going to do it. Command Option 0 looks at it 100%. You're going to grab the Spot Healing Brush tool. All right, that's one of the options. And in that case, what you would do is, let's say this is some acne or something right here, a little blemish. Click, and that's it. That's all you're going to do. All right, see this little dimple here? Of course, we would not retouch this under normal circumstances, but this is how you would do it if it was needing retouching. Click, and there it goes. This freckle right here, click, there it goes. Now that's a little darker, so what we can do is we can go edit, step backward, and then we can choose the healing brush tool. Okay, the healing brush tool works a little bit similarly to the spot healing brush tool. What we're going to do is hold down the Option key. That'll give us a little target. We click where we want to sample from, and then we click and move it around where we want to sample to. And so that's a little bit cleaner. We're sort of telling it where we want to copy from and to, and then it does a little bit of math to get that to look the way we want it to look. Did I just hit that? I think I did. Nope. Okay. Option click, and then there's that retouching. The final one that you can use is the patch tool. Okay. So let's take this dimple. Let's see how much we can do here. So this dimple, which again you would never ever retouch under normal circumstances, but with the patch tool, what you do is click and drag to make a selection. Okay. And then you drag it to an area that you want it to look like. Now, obviously, this is part of Sylvie's neck is much brighter, but the computer is going to do some math to try and match the tone. Select, deselect, and then you can see that was not the greatest of retouches. It's pretty awful, in fact. But this works sometimes. I'm going to hit Command Z, Command Option Z to go back. Deselect is Command D, the shortcut key. The patch tool does work. Let's go ahead and just get this back here. So the patch tool would work here. I can make a selection and then drag to an area that I want it to look like. That's okay. You can still see it's not great. I could drag it over here. It's a little better. Okay. Now again, that's not something I want to retouch. All right. I want to stress that. Okay. And then we would drag it down somewhere like that. And it works out pretty good. Okay. So retouching, be gentle, be very gentle. And then here, if you wanted to, you could make some adjustments, image adjustments, make sure you have your background copy selected, and you could go ahead and do brightness contrast or curves or levels or exposure, whatever you need to, that you didn't do in Adobe Camera Raw. So here you might say, let's increase the contrast a little bit, give a little contrast to that photo. That looks pretty good, right? That looks pretty good. All right? And that's it. That's all I want you to do. Crop, using the rectangular marquee tool. Size, using image size. Retouch, file, save as. That's the last thing you're going to do. File, save as. You're going to go ahead and save as, save it in the same place. Where are my photos, right? And save it as a PSD file, a Photoshop file. It should already have the right name, but go ahead and put your last name on there, all right? So in this case, I would say Stansfield, 2014 headshots, and then whatever that number is, I'll leave that number, okay? That's it. Save it, and then I'll take care of the rest when we print. That's your headshot workflow.